Hello, John Bloodworth, Gentleman Crafter here with Fun with Foundation Paper Piecing, Part 22, the Double Wrench. Now I've given you a cutting guide for this and some templates, but you might want to hand write on what colours you're going to use for what sections to help you understand which pieces you need to cut and how many. Now the pattern itself comes in 3 sections to form one block, so we're going to separate those out and work on them a piece at a time. Starting with section A and working on the back of the pattern, position the square so that it sits centrally on that section. Grab the first of your next pieces and put it right side facing down on top of the piece you just placed against the raw edge of the square. We're then going to stitch along the line that separates sections A1 and A2. Using a tack stitch or reverse stitch at the start and end of the line, and making sure to stitch on the dashed line and not beyond it either side or either end. Then we're going to fold back and press that thing in place. I'm using a finger pressing tool. I've shown previously that you can press with a mini iron as you're working. That can sometimes give you a better result as it gives you a much more permanent crease and make sure the piece stays flat for when you position the next piece. It's entirely up to you, whatever you've got space for in your workspace or whatever you think is going to give you the best results. Okay, now stitching along the lines between sections A2 and A3. Always making sure to trim the fabric, the threads as you go. Folding this piece back and pressing in place, and then we're basically going to work the mirror image of that on the other end of this section. So again, lining that up with the raw edge of the square piece, pinning it in place, excuse me, and then stitching on the line that separates A1 from A4. And this is why we work on the back of the pattern, so that we can then see, as we're stitching, where we need to stitch. If ever you need to double check that you've got enough fabric at the other side of the seam, just use your piece of card and the add a quarter ruler just to double check that it's straight and that you've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you have more, then this can affect the placement of the piece of fabric and ultimately could result in things going a bit awry. So we're stitching now on the line that separates A4 and A5. Pressing that back. And that's our A section complete. Next up, we're going to work on the B section. And do pay careful attention to this one, as we need to make sure that we're doing things or putting things in the right place. So those astute ones amongst you will notice that I'm currently making a big boo-boo and pinning that to the front. But I realised just in time and changed over. So we're basically working almost in a outside in here, so I've got part 1 positioned and I'm currently stitching part 2 to part 1. whereas you really should have gone part 1 to 2. Doesn't really matter as long as it all works out in the end. At least for this bit. Probably for the rest of it you should work in order. So I'm currently trying to work out in my head right now, with an actual headache, what part goes where. I probably should have numbered the pieces. I thought what was easier is if I got the other piece, and then I could actually work out which bit was supposed to go where. So I eventually figured out, after much fumbling, that it was supposed to be one of the green ones that comes next. But you can hear the cogs turning and the steam pistons whirring. Hey, finally got there. So I'm positioning that on top of the two pieces that have already been secured in place, pinning it, and then obviously I'm going to be sewing along the line that connects those two pieces to the next. I've not made any changes to the settings on the machine, so it's short stitch spacing, tack at the start and end, and we're sewing on, not around that line, that dashed line. Folding that back and pressing in place. Now when it comes to the next piece, you'll probably find that actually the straight corners of that triangular piece do meet up with the edges of the section, or they should. So they're a handy way of making sure that that piece is in the right position. So now we're connecting those two pieces. So that would be B3 and B4. It's like paint by numbers, set with fabric. Okay, folding back and pressing. If your triangle comes up a tiny bit short here, like mine did, don't panic. As long as it's within the seam allowance, then you're fine. And then next up, we're basically mirroring what we just did already. So one of the green pieces first, followed by one of the brown pieces. While I'm doing that, I'd like to remind you that obviously I have a Facebook group where a lot of people are now sharing the blocks that they're making, and it's great to see all the different color combinations and variations. And there've even been some awesome projects that people have made using some of the previous blocks. So if that's something you'd like to participate in, please feel free to follow the link in the description below the video on YouTube, or of course on my website, gentlemancrafter.com. It'd be good to have you. So again, just using the add a quarter ruler to fold back the next section and make sure that I have a nice straight edge to work to. So you can see again here how the straight edges of that corner piece meet up with the outer edge of the section. And we're stitching that in place. And of course we would fold that back as well. Then you're going to basically repeat that for the section that is numbered C. the section marked C. And of course, what you would also do is trim the edges up to the solid line that borders the section. So I'll just show you that here. A rotary blade and a quilting ruler are perfect for this, as it means you can hold down the whole piece while you're trimming. You can use scissors if you want to. Just make sure you get it as straight as possible, because the outside edges will be used as a guide later on. So you can see there how that's going to form. And while I'm here, I'll just trim down the edges of the A section as well. Just a reminder, we're on number 22 in this series so far. So that means there are another 21 available to work through if you've just found me. Follow the link to the blog and you'll find more there. Okay, so we've now completed the C section and we're going to stitch these together. So start by connecting A to C or A to B, whichever works for you, and then obviously you would join the other of the B or C section to the other side of the A section. And make sure you get the triangles and things in the right place before you stitch. That's always important. Otherwise you might end up with, well, you'll end up with an alternative. Whether it's what you'll want or not, I can't say. So you'd press the center seams flat on this one. That's where these seam presses come in very handy, because you can get the fine edge right into the fabric mass. I really must sort out my table. It's very wobbly. Okay, so there we go, just pressing that down. And then we're connecting the last section on the opposite side. Stitch all the way down and then obviously press the center seams open, and once you've done that, you've completed the double wrench block. Okay, please remember to give the video a thumbs up and of course subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. In the meantime, thanks for watching.